All right, I guess we can go ahead and get started, and anyone else can join as we go on. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our first session of our virtual monthly series, Partnership and Power Hour. My name is Kristen Left, and I'm the Community Awareness Manager at Durham's Partnership for Children. Today, we're excited to feature Safe Kids Durham for a session on summer safety, and I'd like to welcome Shannon Jackson, who is the Pediatric Injury Prevention Coordinator at Duke Hospital and the Safe Kids Durham County Coordinator.
Hey guys, like Kirsten said, I'm Shannon. And so I run Safe Kids Durham County, and that's part of my job. I'm the pediatric injury prevention coordinator, and so I'm in charge of doing all of our community education to help prevent injuries for kids in Durham, and kind of some of our surrounding areas as well. And we just wanted to kind of come together today. There's a lot of kind of important safety things that we wanted to kind of remind everybody of, especially in the throes of summer heat and everything, to help remind parents some things to keep in mind as we're enjoying the summer and doing lots of fun activities so that you guys can keep having a fun, safe summer. Like I said, as we go, if you guys have questions, if you have something else you're curious about, feel free to drop it in the chat. And at the end of each topic, we'll kind of answer any questions about that topic. And then before we move on to the next one, and then we'll kind of see how it goes and see what information we can share. So the first thing is just kind of obviously summer is there's tons of fun and things, but thousands of kids get hurt during summer activities in a lot of different ways. And so there's lots of little things we can do to adjust how we have fun to keep everybody safer. And so we want to go through and make sure that everybody can have a happy, healthy summer, but also stay safe while we do it. The biggest thing that a lot of people do during the summer is enjoy the water. And so I wanted to go over some really important water safety information. Just so you guys are aware, drowning is the leading cause of death for kids ages 1 through 4. And so it's really important that we keep that in mind and kind of make some adjustments to how we help our kids enjoy the water so that we can keep our kids safe. The first thing I want to talk about is just a couple of rules about getting in the water, whether that's the ocean, a lake, the bathtub, or a pool. Always make sure that you have rules that you talk about before you get there or before you get to the water and that you're really consistent about it. So one of the things I always tell people is make sure that you designate a specific adult to supervise when you're in groups. Um, the rate of incident for kids having either drowning or near drowning incidents actually goes up the more kids and adults there are in an environment because everybody thinks that everybody else is also watching. And so we always talk about designating a water watcher or somebody who, hey, you're in charge of watching the kids right now. And that is kind of their sole focus. They're not also socializing because when you have multiple adults or you're engaging with adults too, then isn't as much attention paid to the kids. And then, like I mentioned before, having consistent rules. So having a just kind of set rule of you never let kids get in the water without adult supervision. Even when kids are a little bit older, if you think about kids who are, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they may be able to swim and they may feel confident and be a strong swimmer. They may have even passed some of I know the YMCA has swim tests and the pool does, like Durham Parks and Rec, before kids can like go in without a life jacket and things. But if you think about it, when kids start playing together, they can kind of play rough. They can be horsing around and they're not as aware of each other and how other kids are doing. And so it's still really important that you have an adult supervising kids in the water, even when they're older, even when they can swim well, even if they're a strong swimmer. Because as kids start roughhousing, as kids start playing, all it can take is one accidental bump, one accidental, grab, one accidental something, and a kid could end up inhaling water and then not being able to recover like they usually would. Another thing is never leaving kids in water, even if just for a minute. And that's not just for a pool. That's in a bathtub, that's in the pool, in the lake, whatever you're doing, making sure that you kind of just set that rule for yourself. Because if you make an exception once, you're likely to do it again. And then it might be 1 minute might turn into two. And drowning can happen really quickly. And it's also silent. It's not the way it is in the movies where there's big, loud splashing and things. It really is mostly a silent injury. And so we want to make sure that you kind of set those consistent rules from the beginning. Um, if you're going out in water or you're not right next to your kid within arm distance, you need to make sure that they have a Coast Guard approved flotation device. There's lots of fun floaties and things that kids can use in the pool. A lot of those floaties are meant for fun. They're not actually a safety tool. And so we always recommend that if your child's in the water and isn't a strong swimmer or doesn't have a life vest or something on, that you keep them within arm's reach. So if something happens, you can get to them. This is also really important if you have more than one child. So I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old, and trying to take both of them to the pool is really hard for me. It's exhausting, and I don't let my 5-year-old in the pool with me without having a flotation device on. Because if I have my 1-year-old, if something happens to my 5-year-old and I have to go in deeper water and I don't have something to float, I can't hold my 1-year-old safely and get her safely. And so that's something that we've just said is that unless there's another adult, she has to wear a flotation device because I'm not capable of saving two drowning kids at the same time if they're not both within arm's reach of me. And so that's something that our family has adopted. It's hard. And so I recognize that too. And my family struggles with it sometimes too. And so that's something, I recognize that some of these things are more difficult and may limit the frequency with which kids can enjoy some of these things. But knowing that my kids are safe or that I can always be an adult that's paying attention and able to step in if necessary is peace of mind enough for me to make those changes. And then another thing that a lot of people also don't realize is it's not recommended for really young kids to get in like hot tubs. Saunas also, and the reason is that we'll talk about this a little bit more too, but kids' bodies heat up faster. And so if you're in a 102, 103 degree hot tub, a child's body can heat up a lot faster than an adult's body. And so it's actually not safe for them to be in it for any significant length of time at all. And so just kind of keeping in mind those kinds of things as well. And then I know we were talking about all the ways you can be safe in the water. The other thing I just want to let you guys know is that 75% of childhood drownings occur at non-swim times. So it's a kid accidentally getting access to water, something like that. 70% of childhood drownings aren't actually wearing swimsuits. And so that's something also to keep in mind is that we can set all of these up while we are enjoying the water, but it's equally important to whatever environment you're in, if there is water nearby, that you make sure that the environment is safe even when you're not using it. That's why certain areas have like laws around about fences around pools and things like that. And here, if you don't have an in-ground pool, if you have an above-ground pool, a lot of those rules and things aren't in place. And so if you have water in your yard, if you're going somewhere with water, going to somebody else's house, being really mindful of that environment because actually most incidents where kids have a drowning incident or near drowning incidents, they actually weren't swimming during that time and got into water another way. And so installing those barriers around fences, like fences, having pool covers, wearing that appropriate life jacket if you're around water, even if you're not going in the lake in that moment, things like that. And then also, getting your kids enrolled in swim lessons if possible, getting that exposure so that they're comfortable and know what to do if something happens. Establishing those skills and those habits is also really helpful. And kind of segueing right into that, I wanted to share with all of you guys, we have an opportunity as Safe Kids Durham. We are a coalition of 30 different community partners. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing next month is we're partnering with Durham Parks and Rec. And we twice a year do 1 week of free swim lessons. And so we're going to be doing that in August. It's going to be at Hillside Pool in Durham, which is their outdoor pool. And it's 1 week, so 5 days in a row of swim lessons. It's from 5 to 7. There are like 30-minute swim lesson increments. And registration is going to start. It's only available in person at Hillside, but registration will start August 3rd. The pool opens that day during family swim, I believe, at 1 p.m. So August 3rd at 1 p.m. is when registration will start. There will be 20 slots per lesson. And it is a first come, first serve to sign up. We do ask that you make sure that you can attend at least 3 of those 5 days. The first 4 days will be lessons with Durham Parks and Rec swim instructors. And then that 5th day is going to be a family swim day. And so we invite the parents to get in the water with their kids. Last time we did this in the spring, the sheriff's office search and recovery divers came and they brought their boat and showed the kids the boat. And one of their divers put on all of his gear and his oxygen tank and actually got in the water with the kids. So it was a really fun experience helping kids learning to be safe in the water, practicing some skills, and then also getting some fun exposure to kind of jobs and things in the water. The set time before that, the fire department came. We've had a fire truck once. We had one time they brought their search and rescue boats and kind of talked to the kids about all their gear. So that's a really great opportunity for you guys to engage and get your kids involved in some swim lessons. Again, it'll be 5 days in a row, August 17th through 21st. And we break it up by age group. So I'd have to double check, but I believe the age groups are the first lessons are ages 3 to 5, and then we're going to do a 6 to 10 or maybe 6 to 11, and then 12 and up. So there is the opportunity for adults as well. teens and adults. And so again, registration will be August 3rd, starting at 1 p.m. You do have to register in person at Hillside Pool. But that's a great opportunity for you guys if that's not something you've been able to access before or haven't been able to get enrolled. I know it's really hard to get into both Durham Parks and Rec and YMCA swim lessons in the summer. They fill up really fast. Um, and then the last thing about water safety on this infographic, there's this picture that says swimwear safety, and it just talks about different colors in the water. And I always found that really interesting to see both in the lake and in the pool which colors you can actually see. And so I've adjusted kind of the colors that I lean towards for buying swimwear for my kids so that it's something that everybody can really see well in the water. And so I just wanted to highlight that for you guys in case that's something you wanted to consider in your swimwear purchases as well. Um, I don't know, Kristen, any questions or anything come up about water safety while we've been talking about this at all?
Not yet. Nope.
Perfect. So the next thing we're going to move into is sun safety. And so keeping safe in the sun is really important. Um, there are a lot of different things that can happen as it's hotter out, as it's lighter longer, and things like that. I know I mentioned the water section as well, but kids' body temperatures heat up 3 to 5 times faster than ours do. And so, whatever environment they're in, if it's a really hot environment, they are more susceptible to all of the things that come with heating up your body. They're going to sweat sooner than we are. They're going to sweat more than we are. They're going to get dehydrated faster. And so they're at higher risk of things like heat stroke and other heat illnesses and things. And so it's really important to be aware of that, that even if you're not too hot, they might be. And so when you're in the sun, if you're going to be in the sun for any period of time, we always recommend applying sunscreen, at least SPF 30 or greater. And it really needs to be applied every 2 hours. If they're doing something that's causing them to sweat a lot or they're in the water, then most sunscreens say that that needs to be changed, decreased to 90 minutes. So every hour and a half to 2 hours, you need to be putting more sunscreen on. This is one of those times where having the long sleeve swimsuits can really be helpful. It'll save you on some of that sunscreen time. It protects them. You have to put on less sunscreen, and it's easier just to throw it on than to make them stop, get out of the pool, dry off, come in from the ocean or whatever, and put more sunscreen on. So that's another great alternative for sun safety is having some clothing that's sun safe or has that broad spectrum protection, and then you don't have to apply as much sunscreen. The other thing to keep in mind is kind of those peak sun hours. And so 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. is really when the sun is at its peak during the day. And so if you're outside during those times, making sure you're cooling off frequently, making sure you're finding some shade, that you're giving kids a little bit of a break, and that they're drinking plenty of water. Again, they're going to sweat sooner than we are and more than we are because their body is going to get hot faster and try and cool itself down. And so they need to be drinking a lot more water. A side note, I mentioned earlier, was a pediatric nurse. If they're not drinking enough, this can also cause them to get more constipated. So if you've noticed your kids in the summer are having some bowel changes and they're having a little bit more trouble, they probably need more water than they're having already. And so that's something that also can adjust in the summertime because of their hydration changing, just because their body is utilizing more water to sweat and keep cool. Um, Another thing to keep in mind as we're going to the park and doing things is that equipment can get really hot. I was just talking with another parent the other day that they put, Dorothea Dix Park in Raleigh has a brand new park that's great, but they're metal slides and they get really hot in the summer. And so you're not always riding down that slide before your kid. And so just being aware that sometimes they can get hot enough to burn your kids. Obviously, it have to be really hot outside, but it can be really hot and uncomfortable, even if it's not hot enough to actually do like physical harm. It can still be really uncomfortable. Same with other things like the metal buckles on their car seats. Those can get really hot. Cars heat up really fast in the summer. We just did a hot car awareness event. Kristen and partnership for Durham's Partnership for Children was there with a bunch of our first responders back in June. And even when it was only 84 degrees outside, my car was 120 degrees inside, and we were making s'mores. And even when we were opening the door to put the s'mores in and take them out, cars can heat up really quickly. We've had multiple instances where it was, 90 degrees outside and over 150 degrees in the car within a couple hours. And so everything in your car is being exposed to 150-degree heat. And that includes even like the metal buckles on your car seat. So just being aware of everything that happens when inside of a car gets hot. And so we have a kind of phrase, stop, look, lock, that every time you're getting in your car, you're always checking to make sure all your kids are buckled. Well, the same thing when you're getting out of the car, always make sure you're looking in the back seat, that everybody is out of the car, everybody is unbuckled. and then making sure you lock your car afterwards. Um, in the last 23 years, 50 children in North Carolina have passed away from being left in hot cars. Last year, there was one just over in Greensboro. Cars get really hot. And so creating those habits, especially when it's hot out, can really make a big difference. The thing to remember too is it doesn't actually have to be that hot outside for it to be too hot in your car. I was looking at the statistics, and last year, the earliest hot car death was in March, and it was 76, I think, degrees or 78 degrees outside. And so even then, it got hot enough in the car that it was fatal. And so just recognizing that even if it isn't super hot outside, you still need to have the habit of never leaving your child in the car because it will get hotter than you think. Um, again, that also applies to pets. I know we're talking about kid safety and summer safety, but never leaving kids or pets in the car. And again, setting up that habit from the beginning. So if every single time you're looking in the back seat, you're making sure you lock your car before or after you get out, if you set that habit that you're checking every single time, 75% of hot car deaths are either kids that were forgotten in the car or kids that have gained access to the car after it was parked. So the car was unlocked, a child was able to get in the car, and then they couldn't get out. And so that's one of those things where if we lock our car every time we get out of it, then it'll help make sure that kids can't get in. There are those child locks on the doors that prevent kids from opening the doors, which can be really important if kids are trying to open the door while you're driving. But the flip side of that is that if kids get into the car when they're not supposed to and you're unaware, they can't get out. Or they're not strong enough and those doors are heavy. At my house, we have a steeper driveway, and my 5-year-old really struggles to even get the door open because it's heavy at that angle. And so if she were to get in the car by herself when I wasn't there, she may not be able to get out. And so that's something that other people also don't realize. Um, of all of the hot car deaths, about 50% of them are kids that were accidentally or unintentionally left in the car. About 25% of them are kids that gained access without an adult's knowledge and then couldn't get out. And so I always like to highlight both the look and the lock of the vehicle because we could prevent 75% of hot car deaths that way. The other thing, just kind of some tips about kind of everything that we've talked about. We talked about dressing in some protective clothing, being mindful of those peak times. The other thing too is that like when you're at the beach, sand can reflect some of those UV rays too. So even if your child is sitting under a beach umbrella, even if they're in a kind of a shaded area, there's still the ability for some reflection to happen. Also, kind of even on a cloudy day, sunscreen is still important. And so making sure that you're utilizing all of these tips, regardless of whether it's 80 degrees outside or 95 degrees outside or over 100, making sure that you're always doing that because again, if you set those habits from the beginning and you set that good example, it'll be a lot easier to kind of do it as a habit and then not miss it when it's especially important. The other thing too is making sure you're wearing your sunscreen, that you're buckling up in the car. We always say kind of do what I say, not as I do, but the really important thing is kids watch you. And so if you're doing it consistently, you will set those good habits and they will follow your example. And so, again, just wanting to remind you of that too. And then the next topic I wanted to talk about is bike and wheel safety. There are a number of things we're going to kind of touch on. The two kind of big ones are whenever anybody is doing anything on wheels, making sure you're wearing a helmet, whether that's a friend's scooter or a friend's bike or anything like that. Just make sure that you are always wearing a helmet. And then we want to make sure that helmet fits properly. And so we have kind of the 2-finger test. And so you always want there to be only 1 or 2 fingers above their eyebrows before you get to the bottom of the helmet. Because if it's any higher, then it's not actually protecting their forehead. And if that's what hits first, then it's still going to do a lot of damage. And so you want only 1 to 2 fingers above the eyebrows. You want your fingers to kind of make a Y or a V directly under their ears. So you want that helmet to be fitted. Usually there's a little adjustment kind of on the chin strap so you can make it sure that it's kind of fixed right under their ears. And then you only want 1 or 2 fingers under the chin strap. They should be able to open their mouth all the way or yawn and still have it and be a little bit snug, but not too tight, but you don't want a ton of space. And so kind of once you have it all fitted, they should be able to move and shake their head and it shouldn't slide back. It shouldn't fall forward. The strap shouldn't be hanging really loose. So that's kind of a way to check. And if you need any help with that, there are some great videos and visuals online as well. Or we do a number of events throughout the community during the year, and you can always come and ask us. We do some events with the Durham Bike Co-op where they do provide helmets sometimes. We do have some helmets available. And so if you're not able to purchase a helmet, then we'd love to connect with you and let us know, and we can try and connect you with our next event with the Durham Bike Co-op because they are able to get some grant funds to provide helmets for families in need. Another big thing in the summer is kids love to be outside in their bathing suits and wearing flip-flops and bare feet. And I always remind people that it's really important. I kind of say the shirts and shoes required, that you want to make sure your kids have closed-toed shoes. A lot of kids like to drag their toes to brake on their scooters or on their bikes. Um, and so making sure they have closed-toed shoes, also because if anything gets rolled over or run on or falling and they're breaking, those flip flops really aren't going to protect their feet very well and also can be a little bit unstable if they're trying to stop quickly. And then you want to make sure they're wearing clothes because if they do fall, yes, kids are going to scrape their elbows, they're going to scrape their knees sometimes. But depending on how quickly they're going and what kind of wheeled thing they're on, they can get some pretty bad road rash. And so making sure your kids have appropriate clothing on as well. The other thing I want to touch on is we are seeing so many more injuries and kids coming into our emergency departments because of e-bikes and e-scooters. And so this mostly applies to older kids, but it's something to kind of just be aware of now for your younger kids as they get older. And if you have older kids, um, we are seeing a ton of e-bike injuries because a lot of those kids, they're going a lot faster than they realize and they're not following the rules of the road, or a lot of our sidewalks are uneven. They're hitting a bump and they don't realize. And so just to kind of give you an example, if you have a child that's only 50 pounds and they're going at 10 miles an hour, if they crash into something, that's like 500 pounds of force stopping them in that crash. And if you bump into a child with 500 pounds, that can really do a lot, can cause a lot of injury. And so, um, every mile per hour you increase, you're going to increase how much force there is. And so we really want to kind of just make people mindful of how dangerous they can be and how important riding them correctly, riding them safely, and riding them with a helmet is so important. Something to know about helmets is so bike helmets can reduce the risk of a head injury by about 45%. It can reduce brain injuries by 33%. And it can reduce fatal injuries by 29%. Kind of throwing a bunch of numbers at you, but helmets can make a big difference. And so it's really important that we start those habits again from an early age and that you demonstrate them too. So anytime you guys are on a bike or on a scooter or doing anything with your kids, showing them through your example of wearing that helmet is going to be really important. Um, and so there's a lot of information coming out right now, and there will be a lot of PSAs and social media reels and things about e-bikes and scooters. But anything we can do to kind of help raise awareness of it becoming a really dangerous problem. We've had a lot of fatalities this year related to e-bikes nationwide. And we're getting a lot of more pediatric injuries in our emergency departments because of e-bikes and e-scooters. And a lot of times kids, older kids and teens are riding them on the road and cars are not as safe and on the road and treating them as a vehicle on the road either. And so you guys as drivers can also help us make a difference and protect some of these kids that are not being as responsible with those e-bikes and scooters. I know that we have the ability for through Lime and Uber and things to kind of rent a scooter and ride around. And a lot of those, teens, high school students, college students, young adults may not have helmets with them. It's not like somebody's carrying around a helmet all the time. And so being aware of other people who are being unsafe and what we can try and do to kind of keep everybody safe is also a really important thing to do as well. The other thing I want to mention as part of this bike safety is we're also going to be doing kind of a little traffic garden and having some helmets available for kids that participate in our Safe Swim Week. We do kind of 3 of those 5 nights. We do some educational topics, and so one of those nights there will be some bike and pedestrian safety information as well for everybody. And so if you participate in that Safe Swim Week, you will have the opportunity to do a little traffic garden like that's pictured here on this slide. Um, excuse me, that we set up with Safe Routes to School and Bike Durham. And then we will have some helmets available for participants in that Safe Swim Week who don't have them already. And again, another great opportunity to get connected and get educational information on multiple topics with one of our programs. Another thing, I know this is after the 4th of July when kind of talking about burns and things are kind of a hot topic, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended. But I also want to talk about kind of cooking and burn safety. That's another thing that we're cooking outside, we're grilling, we're doing s'mores and things like that. And we also see a lot more burn injuries in the summertime. So one of the things that's important to think about is keeping kids away from hot surfaces. We do a decent job in our homes of keeping kids away from the stove and things like that. It can be a lot harder when the girls outside and kids are running around and playing, keeping them away from those hot surfaces and flames. The other thing to think about too is that it's not just the top of the grill that gets hot. There are parts of the sides and under the grill. And so just being mindful of creating a really kind of wide berth around the grill for kids or around an open flame. There's tons of like fire pits and things that people love and they can be really fun. And I'm not saying don't use them. I kind of use the phrase of teaching my kids to do dangerous things carefully and supervised most of the time. And so as long as you create those good habits, you can grill all summer long. We can enjoy those fire pits as long as we're supervising our kids and teaching them how to do it safely. And then remembering too that even if we teach them to be as safe as we possibly can, um, that kids are impulsive. They get distracted. And so it can be, you can do everything right and they can still have something happen. But if we set those, the more things we have in place to protect them from the beginning, the better it will be. Um, Another thing that is a kind of important thing to remember is if you are using a grill, don't use those wire grill brushes. I have a couple examples of ones that have been recalled, pictured in this little circle. But those little wire pieces can break off on the grill and then get into your food. And we've actually seen some injuries nationwide with that. And so we do not recommend using wire grill brushes if you are grilling and cleaning your grill. Another thing that is always important is near any flames, hot things, or any pyrotechnics, any sparklers, any fireworks, make sure your kids have shoes on. I unfortunately have a child that got burned this summer when she was doing a sparkler with my brother-in-law because he forgot to make sure she had shoes on. And the tip of the sparkler broke off and it landed between her toes. And she got burned between her big toe and her second toe with the tip of a sparkler. And I found out afterwards the non-colorful, non-fancy sparklers, they burn at 1800 degrees. Um, they are very dangerous. And so we are doing some wound care at my house right now because we did not make sure that she had shoes on when she was around all of my family doing sparklers around the 4th, and I was otherwise occupied with my other child. So that's the other thing too, is that you can know all of these safety tips. You can be implementing them 100% of the time that you're supervising. But it's also really important that we check in with anybody else who is supervising and make sure that they know what our expectations are. And I had not set that up clearly. And so part of that is on me because I didn't make sure that when she was with them that they knew what I expected and what kind of safety measures we take in our family. And again, there's ways to communicate that and it doesn't have to be kind of a big thing. It's just, hey, this is what we do, this is what we're doing. And if your kids know that already, um, then they can also help. So my daughter is, my 5-year-old is great in the car. She knows all the rules about being buckled and not driving and not moving the car yet until she's buckled in, and she can do all of that. But she hasn't really had much experience with sparklers, and so she didn't know those habits because we hadn't done them together yet. And so again, if your kids don't know better, they can't do better. But if they do, they can be a second accountability when you're not there if they know the rules and you've enforced them consistently enough and help them understand why. Um, Again, fireworks, also not even just sparklers, can be really dangerous. Just to kind of do a review from this year, in North Carolina, there were 27 firework related incidents, like fires that happened. I think there were 22 personal residences that caught on fire as a result. We've had 3 deaths over July 4th weekend. We had 3 deaths in North Carolina. One of them was a 7-year-old who passed away in Dunn because of a an illegal firework that somebody had bought to set off, and something happened and it ended up shooting off horizontally instead of vertically, and it went through a window and ignited a couch. So again, that's one of those things I didn't fully appreciate how um, complicated it is to make and build and do all the things around fireworks and like the level of professional oversight required. But there's a reason that certain fireworks are not legal in North Carolina and in other states, and there's a reason that most like big fireworks need to be left to professionals. There was $4.3 million in damage caused by fireworks in North Carolina just over July 4th weekend. And so again, just being really mindful, really aware, and really careful around all things fire, sparklers, fireworks. And again, it's not just you, it's who's around you and who's around your kids because people can have the best of intentions, right? Fireworks look cool. They're really fun. Um, if they're being done safely and if they're being supervised and if the right people are the ones doing them, they can be amazing. And it can also go terribly wrong when it's not done correctly. And then the other thing to keep in mind with all of this kind of stuff, especially with, burns and things like that, is also making sure that you have the supplies necessary if something happens. So making sure you have a first aid kit. I always recommend having one in the car, having one at your home that has just some minor first aid supplies, because here's the thing, we can do everything right and accidents still happen. And so making sure you have what you need for the minor things that we can handle ourselves. And then also if you need to seek medical attention that you do. And so those are just kind of tips and things as you're dealing with cooking and burn safety and making sure that you have what you need to take care of it if some minor burns and things happen is another great kind of point to keep in mind and be prepared in the event that something happens. Um, Another big part of my work is around car seat safety. And so we'll probably do another information on kind of a much longer car seat safety kind of webinar for you guys or information session. But I did want to bring one other thing to your guys' attention that has become a huge problem, specifically in North Carolina, but also nationwide, is we are seeing a lot of counterfeit and unsafe car seats. Um, Almost every week, we have at least one or two unsafe car seats coming into the hospital after a baby is born. At Duke University Hospital, we have started doing some new education for families when their children are born. And we're checking the seat, we're making sure it's not expired or recalled, and kind of going over a little bit more than we have in the past. And one of the things we are finding is a lot more unsafe seats. So every single seat in the United States, in order to be legal, has to have a sticker on it that specifically says that it meets, exceeds, or conforms to its Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard 213 or FMVSS 213. Um, and there are a lot of seats now on TikTok, on Amazon, on Temu, even on some of the Walmart third-party sites. So on some of these online sites, you might be on Walmart.com, but some of the things they have listed on their website are by a third-party vendor. And so or on Amazon as well, there's a number of third-party vendors. And so they don't vet all of the things being sold there. So just to highlight that, on the screen that you see right now, in the bottom left corner is a counterfeit Duna. You can see the buyer beware. You can see the real and fake look very similar. But these two pictures in the bottom left corner are of a seat that is not safe. The crash tests for this counterfeit seat show that the plastic shatters on impact and it's not safe. And this was a seat, this is a picture taken at Duke University Hospital of a counterfeit seat that was found. This other seat on the right is also a counterfeit or an unsafe seat that was found from a patient in Durham County. Their sister had bought them this whole nice travel set for over $400, and it's not a safe car seat. It has not been crash tested. It has not been approved for use, and it's not safe. And so both of these families had the best of intentions. They bought a brand new car seat. They thought that they were doing exactly what they could to keep their child safe. And unfortunately, it wasn't a safe seat. And so we were able to help them because they had brought that to our attention. And we have some systems now in place to help families kind of assess that. But I wanted to share that with you guys. I know you guys have kids that are in preschool, but a lot of times you may be adding more kids to your family. You may know somebody who might be having a baby. The more we can get this information out to help families make sure that they get a safe seat, the better. And just 2 weeks ago, there were 3 unsafe seats found at Durham Regional in 24 hours. And so we were able to help those families make sure that they had a safe seat for discharge through a number of different community programs. But it's a huge problem right now and getting worse as people are trying to find something that they like, trying to find a good deal. I kind of tell people if you see a deal that's too good to be true, it probably is. But if you ever have questions, I operate a car seat checking station. We do the car seat checking at the fire station in North Durham on Tuesday mornings. We do it by appointment right now, but we do occasionally do some pop-up community events. And so if you ever want to make an appointment with us to learn how to install your car seat or how to properly fit it, it's about a 30-minute appointment. It's free. It's with a certified child passenger safety technician. I have a number of volunteers that come and help me on Tuesday mornings. And so you can always make an appointment with us on Tuesdays. And then later in September, September is Child Passenger Safety Month, and we're going to have a drop-in car seat event on Saturday, September 26th. And I'll get the flyer over to Partnership for Children so that you guys can have that. But we're going to be doing a drop-in car seat check event on Saturday, September 26th for a National Seat Check Saturday. So put that on your calendars too if you'd like to come by and have a car seat technician kind of review that for you guys. Excuse me. Um, Again, my goal in all this is I just want to help everybody in our community keep kids safe, any way that I can, any way that I can help. If you guys have other groups that this would be helpful for, also please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm going to put up some of my information. I went through this a little more quickly than I had anticipated. And so I also would love to open it up for questions too. If you guys have questions, other topics are fine too. Anything injury prevention related for kids, I'm happy to help. But I also wanted to leave you guys with my email and my phone number as well, because I would be more than happy to help you guys with any questions you have, schedule a car seat appointment, or follow up on any of these topics as well. So again, I'm Shannon Jackson. I run Safe Kids Durham County, and I work for Duke Health. I work in the trauma department. And you can always reach me at safekids@duke.edu or the phone number below, and I'm happy to help any way that I can. And we're going to be getting some flyers and information over to Kristen to get out to you guys around some of these topics as well. But any other questions or anything from anybody that I could help out with right now?
I think someone in the chat asked if you could send the information about the hillside pool.
Yes.
Could you just repeat that for
Yeah.
the group? And then also we can send it out to all the registrants after this as well.
Perfect. Yeah. So the week of August 17th through 21st at Hillside Pool, registration starts Monday, August 3rd at 1 p.m. And you do have to register in person. But the lessons, the 3 to 5 year olds, I believe, is 5 to 5:30. And then the 6 to 10 or 6 to 11 year olds is from 5:45 to 6:15, I believe. And then 6:30 to 7 will be the teens and adults. And so I'll once we have a flyer from Durham Parks and Rec, we were just talking about it at our meeting yesterday. I'll make sure that everybody has that. But again, registration will be Monday, August 3rd at Hillside Pool, and the lessons will take place August 17th through 21st, between 5 and 7, depending on the age group of the child. And then that Friday will be a family swim. So even if your child's doing the lessons, mark on that. It can be a family event. You can bring siblings to that as well. And it'll be a great opportunity for everybody to get in the water and have some fun together too after a week of learning.
Awesome. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but we can wait a couple more
Yeah.
minutes. And we'll be sure to send out some of the information, Shannon's contact information, as well as the flyer for the Safe Swim Week, and any other events that she mentioned in her presentation. We'll be sure to send out after today.
I am just gonna pop up our, I can pull it up. If anybody wants to schedule a car seat appointment, I'm just gonna throw, oh, maybe that's not it. This QR code up so that everybody has it to make it a little bit easier. If anybody is interested in scheduling an appointment, that QR code will get you to our website to schedule an appointment as well. I'll leave that up for just a second. I flew through that a little faster than I expected, Kristen.
No, that was perfect. I thought it was a great pace. It was really helpful. Thank you so much, Shannon, for sharing
Yeah.
your knowledge with us. Really appreciate it. And I hope everyone can join us for a future Partnership and Power Hour where we'll share community resources with you all. And we hope to have Shannon back with us for another session soon. So really appreciate everyone being here. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. It was great. And again, feel free to reach out anytime. Happy to help however I can.
Bye.